What's going on, guys? I am here today with another deck profile for you guys. Today I'm doing Speedroids. So for those that don't know, Speedroids are a very sort of combo-based, fast-paced synchro deck. So you do a lot of combos, a lot of searching, special summoning, and you're just trying to bring out your big boss monsters. It's pretty fun, honestly. It's probably one of my favorite decks I've ever built. Just because, like I said, it's just very fast paced, and you're doing a lot of things at one time. I know that on this channel, a lot of my decks are like combo based, and I'm trying to make them more competitive. But Speedroids are a deck that they're competitive no matter what. You can very easily just kind of control a game by overwhelming your opponent. Um, and pretty much everything in this deck is really cheap. There's a few, like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon is a few bucks, but like all of the Speedroid stuff got reprinted in the Legendary Duelist Synchro Storm. So everything in this deck, like the main deck, is like a few dollars to put together, because everything is like just really cheap. So with that being said, let's get into it. So to start with, I run one copy of Speedroid Terror Top. This is the best like opener you can have. Like opening this card is insane because it has the effect. Whoops. It has the effect that if you control no monsters, you can special summon him, and then when this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. So it's a free search or a free special summon for your synchro plays. It's really powerful. And onto that, a card I typically search, but obviously there's other plays depending on your board state. I run one copy of Speedroid Fuki Madoshi Piper. I think I'm saying that right. So this card has the effect that when this card is normal or special summoned, you can excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of other wind monsters you control, which pretty much everything in this deck is wind type, so pretty much the amount of monsters you control. Add one of the excavated cards to your hand and place the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. It also has the effect you can banish this card from your graveyard and target a level 3 or higher wind monster you control and reduce its level by 2. But the first effect is really what makes this card so great. It's a freak excavation, and like I said, this deck specializes in getting monsters on the board incredibly fast. So like if I had 4 other monsters on my board, it's kind of like a mini version of Pot of Prosperities, which is like really good. So I definitely like having this card at 1 just for that reason. Next, I run 3 copies of Speedroid Card Turbo. So this is a really good card. What this card does is if you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can't activate the effect, monster effects except wind monsters for the rest of the turn, which is fine because you only have wind monsters in the deck, really. And then you can banish this card and a Speedroid monster from your graveyard. All wind monsters you control gain 800 attack until the end of the turn, which is fine. But really, with this card, you're using its effect to special summon. It's a free level 3 tuner on your board with that special summon. So I think it's a really good card to run at 3, just to make sure you always kind of get into it. Next, I run 3 copies of Speedroid Takatomborg. So this is a really good card. It has a similar effect to Card Turbo, where if you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. But it also has the effect that you contribute this card and special summon a Speedroid tuner from your deck. And then you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except the wind monsters. So this is really good because, again, it's a free special summon for synchro plays. We can also tribute it to special summon. You could go into a Piper if you wanted to go into that play, or there are other tuners you could go into, just depending on whatever you sort of want for your synchro plays. But again, it's just a free special summon in the deck, which I think is really good. So I like having this card at 3. Next, I run 3 copies of Speedroid Marble Machine. So Marble Machine has the effect that when this card is normal summoned, you can add a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. So it's a free search, and you can't special summon except wind monsters. But this is a level 2, so it's good for your lower level synchro plays, and it's a free search. So I like having this card at 3. The only problem with it is that its effect doesn't work when it's special summoned, so that's not like the best, but honestly, it really doesn't matter too much, because this can be your one normal summon, and you can special summon pretty much everything else. Next, I run 2 copies of Speedroid Red Eye Dice. So Red Eye Dice is really good. What it does is when this card is normal or special summon, you can target a Speedroid monster you control except the red-eye dice and declare a level from 1 to 6, and that monster becomes that level until the end of the turn. So that's really good because it's not once per turn. So if you manage to special summon red-eye dice twice in one turn, which you can do in this deck, there's just so much versatility with your synchro plays. You can pretty much go into any level 7 or lower synchro monster you want to, which I think is really good. Next, I run 2 copies of Speedroid Denden Daiko Duke. So what this card does is you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon a Speedroid tuner from your hand or graveyard except Daiko Duke, and you can only use this effect once per turn. So, like I said, it's just a free special summon. It's a nice graveyard effect, and you could just use this card as a tuner if you wanted to. So, very versatile in that sense. And that's sort of the essence of this deck, is that every card is versatile. There's just so many different things you can do with it. Next, I run 1 copy of Speedroid Ultra Hound. So this card's effect is when it's normal summon, you can add a Speedroid card from your deck to your... send 1 Speedroid card from your deck to your graveyard, and then during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card and target a Speedroid monster from your graveyard and shuffle it into the deck, and then special summon a Speedroid Synchro monster from your extra deck with the same level, but a different name, and negate its effects. So this is nice to get a card in your graveyard, like you could send Daiko Duke, for example, and then its graveyard effect is really good because you bring out a Synchro monster. It's a free special summon. Even though the monster's effects are negated, it's just free for synchro plays. So I really like having this card at 1. More than 1, though, I feel like can get kind of cloggy just because it's not, you have to normal summon it. So I don't like running it at more than 1. Next, I play 1 double Yo-Yo. When this card is normal summon, you can target a level 3 or lower Speedroid monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So, I mean, that right there is a free level 7 or 6 or 5, depending on what levels you want to go into, but like just in case you bring out like a red-eye dice. But this is a really nice sort of like a start of your main phase. You can normal summon this card, go into a synchro, which I really like. Next, I run 1 copy of Speedroid Horse Stilts. So when this card is normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Speedroid monster from your hand, which again is really nice. And then during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card and send a wind monster from your deck to the graveyard, which, as you have seen so far, a lot of these cards have some pretty solid graveyard effects. So I like that. That's it for the Speedroid monsters. As you can see, they all kind of follow a theme of fast-paced special summoning and graveyard effects. And that's sort of like the bread and butter of this deck and what makes it function really well. Now for some additional monsters. I run 2 copies of Mech Phantom Beast Tetherwolf. So I like this card because it's a wind monster, so you can target it with some of your other Speedroids. And its effect gives you 2 level 3 tokens when it's normal summoned, which are really good for your synchro plays. And it does provide some versatility with Tetherwolf because his levels change depending on your tokens. So that's pretty nice, just for, like I said, some versatility with your synchro plays. Next, I run 2 copies of Red-Haired Hasty Horse. So this card is nice because it's essentially just a free special summon. If there's a column with no cards in it, you can special summon this card to that column, and then right there is a free Crystal Wing, as long as you have a level 3 tuner, which is very easy to come by in this deck. Next, I play 3 copies of Win the Wind Channeler. So I like this card because it has the effect you can discard this card and another wind monster, and add a wind monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. So that's a lot of your Speedroids follow that criteria. So it's a free searcher. You get to load up your graveyard a little bit, and then this card also has the a graveyard effect. Or not a graveyard effect, a hand effect, sorry. When a wind monster you control is destroyed by battle and this card is in your hand, you can special summon this card. So that effect I really don't go into that much just because you kind of have to do it during your opponent's turn. But I use the first effect a lot, and the second effect can be nice at the end of your opponent's battle phase just for some synchro plays during your turn. However, I really don't use that effect much. If I have this card in my hand, I'm usually going for the search. And then finally, my last monsters are 3 effect Veilers. I just like having Veilers in this deck to protect against monster effects, which can be a weakness in this deck, and it's a tuner, so just in case you need it for synchro plays, that is an option. Now for spell cards, I run 3 copies of Speedroid Wheel. So with Speedroid Wheel, you can discard a card, roll a 6-sided dice, and special summon from your hand and or deck 1 or 2 Speedroid monsters whose total levels equal the result of your rolled number, but negate their effects. And if you don't special summon, you take damage equal to your roll times 500. So you're pretty much always going to special summon. Depending on your roll, this is kind of a luck-based card, which isn't the best, but depending on your roll, you can make some pretty crazy plays with that card because it can be up to 2 free monsters. Next, I play 3 copies of 3 copies of Speed Recovery. So this card is essentially a monster reborn for Speedroids, and it's not once per turn. So that's kind of like the reason I played a 3 is, in theory, if you had 3 in your hand, you could activate all 3 in one turn, which is pretty crazy for this deck. It also has the effect that while this card's in your graveyard, you can banish this card and target a Speedroid monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So again, some more recycling there, which I think is really nice. So I definitely would recommend running this card at 3. Next, I play 1 copy of Speedroid Scratch. So with this card, you can send a Speedroid card from your deck, from your hand to the graveyard, and a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand, and then you can activate this once per turn. So you can discard 1, add 1 from deck to hand, which is like good. I like playing it at 1 because it can be kind of bricky. If you don't have a Speedroid card in your hand to discard, it's a dead draw. So I don't like running this card at more than 1, but when you need it and it works, like, you can make some pretty good plays. Then I run 1 copy of Monster Reborn, just because you're kind of loading up your graveyard. It's a good card to have. And 1 Foolish Burial for your certain graveyard effects, like you could use Speedroid Hound or Daiko Duke. There's some versatility there. Now for trap cards, I run 1 copy of Speedroid Duplicate. So this card has the effect that you can banish a wind monster from your graveyard and target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And then during your main phase of this card's in your graveyard, you can target a level 2 or higher Speedroid monster, reduce this level by 1, and special summon this card as a level 1 token, pretty much, which is pretty nice. Again, you can return 1 card your opponent controls to the hand, which is good, and then its graveyard effect can sort of lead you into some synchro plays, which I think is pretty nice. Whoops, I dropped it. And then the last traps I play in this deck is 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Just having the ability to negate your monster's effects is really good. Or your opponent's monster's effects, sorry, is really good. It's similar to the 3 Veilers. You could switch this out for like Ash Blossoms or Ghost Ogres or whatever, but whoops, I like having that protection. Now for the extra deck. I run 1 copy of Clearwing Synchro Dragon. I like having this card. It's a generic level 7, so pretty easy to go into. And it gives you 2 negates. So its first negate is when a level 5 or higher monster activates its effect, you can negate the activation and destroy it. And its other effect is when a monster effect is activated that targets level 5 or higher monster on the field, and no other cards, you can negate the activation and destroy it, and this card buffs and attack points. So I like having this card at 1, just because it gives you 2 negates instead of 1. It's pretty easy to go into. Next, I run 2 copies of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This card is probably the most expensive, like, themed card in the deck. It's like a few dollars, but it's really nice because when an opponent's or when another monster's effect is activated, you can negate the activation, destroy that monster, and this card gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of the turn. And this card battles an opponent's level 5 or higher monster. This card gains attack equal to the current attack of that opponent's monster it's battling. So it gets attack points during battle phase, but really the negate is what makes this card so good. It's a 3k beater, and having 2 of these on the field especially can be kind of devastating, just negating 2 of your opponent's effects. Next, I run 1 copy of the Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon. So this is the new one. I think it came out it came out in the Synchro Storm, but I don't know if it came out before that. I don't think it did. But it gives you the effect that when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can activate this effect. So this card will be unaffected by your opponent's monster effects, and it gains attack equal to that opponent's monster's attack. And it also has another effect that when Once per turn, when a spell, trap, or effect is activated, you can negate that activation and destroy it. And if this Synchro Summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can search for a wind monster from deck to hand. So it's really nice. It does a little bit of everything. It gives you protection against monster effects. It negates monster effects or spell and trap effects. So it's a little more versatile than Crystal Wing, and it gives you the search when it leaves the field. Next, I run one Speedroid Cork Shooter. So I like having this card at 1. It's your Synchro Tuner to go into your Crystal Clearwing. It has the effect that when this card is Synchro Summoned, you can either add a Speedroid Spell or Trap from deck to hand, or the effect I prefer personally, if all the monsters that were used for the Synchro Summon are in the graveyard, you can special summon them all back. So you can Synchro Summon into this card with like a Red-Eye Dice and pretty much any other card, and then you can bring back those 2 cards and use Red-Eye Dice's effect again to manipulate levels and go into more Synchro plays. So in theory, a Red-Eye Dice with any other Speedroid monster could go into Cork Shooter, which would be a free Crystal Clearwing, which I think is really powerful. And there's another card in this extra deck that I'll get into a little bit later, Cosmic Blazer Dragon, which I kind of just threw in as a gimmick. It's not like a great card, but it's cool to go into a level 12 boss monster, and this card is pretty important for that. Next, I play 1 copy of High Speedroid Puzzle. So this card, it's a level 4, pretty easy to go into. It's not the best, but it's a nice level 4 to ramp in your Synchro plays. That's pretty much all I use it for, is just a way to ramp up levels a little bit. Next, I play 1 copy of High Speedroid Hagoida. So with this card's effect, you contribute this card once per turn, or during either player's turn, you contribute this card and increase the levels of all monsters currently on the field by 1. So you can disrupt your opponent's plays or help your own. And then also has the effect that if you control a Speedroid Tuner, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. So that's really nice, a little bit of recycling there. You can use it for a Synchro Summon and then bring it back immediately, which I think is really kind of handy. And then I run 1 High Speedroid Chambara. So this card can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if this card battles against 200 attacks, so it can sort of continuously keep sort of powering up. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Speedroid cards and add it to your hand. So that's nice just for some of your graveyard effects to recycle. So I like having this card at 1. Next, I play 1 copy of High Speedroid Kite Drake. So this card is like a pretty underrated boss monster in my opinion. If this card is Synchro Summon, you can activate one of these effects to either destroy all other cards on the field, which is a pretty nice board wipe because it keeps itself on the field, or negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. So either way, it's a pretty good effect. You're going to make some use of it no matter what. So I think it's a really good Synchro to go into. Right? You don't always have to go into Crystal Wing with this deck. This card is also very good. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can add a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. So that's a really nice searcher as well. Next, I play High Speedroid Clearwing Rider. So this is a level 11. It's a pretty big Synchro. It needs a Wind Tuner and non-Wind Synchro monster. So you do have to use Synchro monsters as your non-tuner targets, which is why I like running the puzzle mostly. So once per turn during your main phase, you can roll a 6-sided dice and shuffle wind monsters from your graveyard into the deck up to the result, and then pop cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards shuffled. So that's a really good effect, and then this card also gains 500 attack for each card destroyed by this effect. So it's already at 3,500. It can get stronger, which is really nice. And then it also has the effect that during your opponent's main phase, you can tribute this Synchro Summon card and special summon up to 2 level 7 Wind Synchro monsters from your extra deck with different names. So that's really nice. That's essentially going into a free Crystal Wing, or not Crystal Wing, sorry, Clear Wing, which is, I don't think I need to specify like how good that can be. So I definitely like running this card. If you wanted to, you could throw in like Clearwing Fast Dragon or second Crystal Wing, or not Crystal Wing, Clear Wing, sorry, just so you could get full value out of this card's effect, but I feel like it's pretty good as is, and extra deck space is limited, so I didn't feel the need to run a second Clear Wing just to utilize his effect. Next, I play 1 copy of High Speedroid Rubber Band Shooter. So this is your only non-synchro monster in the entire extra deck. It has the effect that you can, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon a wind monster, and you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except synchros, which is fine because this is your only non-synchro anyway. And you can banish a Wind Synchro monster from your extra deck and reveal a Speedroid monster with a different name from your deck whose total level, or Speedroid monsters from your deck with different names, whose total levels equal the level of that Synchro monster, and you get to special summon them. So that's, or not special summon them, sorry. I'm very disoriented right now. Add them to your hand. So that's really good. You get one search and then your opponent sends the rest to the graveyard, which is fine because you have graveyard effects. So I recommend running this card at 1. It's pretty good. The only problem with it is since you can only synchro summon, this card kind of has to stay on the field, which isn't great because it only has 1,000 attack points. But with this deck, there's so much like OTK potential because it goes so fast that it's honestly okay. Next, I run 1 copy of Virtual World QB Shinshin. This is a nice card I run at 1. It's level 9, it's easy to go into, and if you go into it sort of at the end of your turn, you don't have to worry about its effect banishing your own cards, and you can really disrupt your opponent's plays, which I think is really nice. Then I play 1 Stardust Charge Warrior. This is a level 6. It's pretty nice to go into, just sort of to get that free draw when it's summoned. Then I run 1 copy of Wind Pegasus Ad Ignister. This is some nice back row removal, gives yourself a little bit of protection. That's pretty much the only reason I run this card. It's not one that I go into all the time, but it's pretty good. And it also has the effect here. I can put it back on the screen there. It has the other effect that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, and this card on the field in the graveyard, you can banish this card and target a card your opponent controls, shuffle it into the deck. So that's pretty good. It's pretty easy to go into. It's generic, so I just like having this card as an option. And then finally, I run the Cosmic Blazer Dragon. So this card needs a Tuner Synchro and 2 non-Tuner Synchros. So the way I go into this card is you need your Cork Shooter to get to 3. And then after that point, you pretty much have to make up 9 more levels. So that's usually your Puzzle and Hagoida or Chanbara. That's pretty much, let me just make sure that the numbers add up. Yeah, so right there, this would be, sorry, I didn't mean to shake the camera. That would be 9, this would make 12. And like I said, this card, it's not great. It gives you some negating options. It's a 4,000 attack point monster, so it's not bad by any means. But it's just kind of a gimmick. It's cool to go into when you can. But I certainly wouldn't worry about running this card. You could replace it with like a pretty much any other synchro you wanted to. I just like having it for the gimmick. But yeah, that's it for this deck. It's a very fun combo-based, high-speed deck. Again, it's very cheap to make as well, aside from like the imperms and the veilers, which might be like $1 or $2. Like most of the main deck is cents, so pretty fun, pretty cheap. I would highly recommend you guys try this one out. If there's other decks you guys want to see me profile, leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe for more. I do upload videos pretty frequently on this channel. And that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching.